Today I'm looking at a Volvo. This one has a problem with the boot won't open. So using the launch I was able to activate it. I think you might have heard it there. So I know that the boot mechanism itself works. It's probably a switch fault if that's the case. So it gives us a direction. If I go to the switch here, I've got a ground. It lights up with a green light, you see on there. So I get the ground with a green light. The power, and you'll notice that when the switch is back in 2, it's actually duty cycled, and it's for the lights, license plate lights. When the car starts, it pulses the power, and when it's ignition on only, it's just on all the time. I've noticed that in a few other cars. And this last wire is doing nothing. I've got something there, occasionally I just got it there, but it's not enough. So what happens when I press the switch, it's hard to do it with my not enough hands, but if I'll try and press that. There, it lights up green. When I press the switch, it lights up green, so it means it gives it a ground. So I would expect some sort of a biased voltage. It could even be as high as 12 volts, but it wouldn't light up the light on here. It would just be a voltage, and that's not enough. So we now need to find out. That would be coming from the body control module, and when you press the switch, the voltage that was on there would get pulled to ground, because the resistor would be at the other end of the line in the body control module. And that would let it know to activate this. So here we have, I'll close this first. Okay, with the latch closed, we have 2 big wires, so we would say that they are further. We've got a ground, another ground. They're going to be for the actuator in here, and the other 2 are position sensors. So I've got ground first of all, and the one next to it is power. So the furthest one over is power and ground, and when this is open they'll switch over, so it knows when the latch is open or closed. Those 2, the smaller ones, are just position sensors. So the first one's power, and the next one is ground. But if I open this, I'm going to give this very end one power. Let's open the latch. Now these 2 are the other way around. That one was the power before, and that one was the ground. So if I basically it switched them about, so it knows whether it's open or closed. That lot's all working fine. I know which one is the power for the lights and the ground, and this is the signal for the switch, for the micro switch to open the boot. So there's going to be a break somewhere. Usual place is to look in here, because it's a part that flexes. So I'm going to open that up and have a look for the broken wire. Just a thought here, when you're doing this, I'll close that again and show you something. Right, that's closed. How do I know which one is which here? When there's 2 grounds, how did I know which one to put power to? Well, that was just simply by unplugging it. So if I could unplug that. So now we can see which one's gone away. And the end one, I'll go this way, might be easier. So the end one, you see we have voltage now. That was a ground with a green light. This one's voltage, but there's no red light. So it's like it's a computer signal voltage. In other words, there's a resistor before this, and then this will make the contact. So this is the ground side of the circuit. The one next to it is 0, and there's a green light showing you it's a ground. So I knew if I gave this one power, it would open it. When I plug it in, like that, I've got 2 grounds, not just one, and one next to it. So that's how the one that stays ground all the time, I don't give that power, is the other one. And that opens it. And then these 2 that were power and ground switch over, so it's ground and power. This plastic, hard plastic part was inside here, and right at the end of where it sits, the wires must flex, right there, and it's caused breaks to go and fix them up. Before I fix these, I'll show you this one wire that wasn't going anywhere. I've got 13 volts, and again you see how there's no red LED, so that must be the signal. I'm going to try, you won't be able to see this because I'm going to try and do it one-handed. I'm going to hit this switch there so I get a ground. And you heard that opened it, so that's sending the signal, so we know everything's okay. Just got to fix this. Usually if there's something not working in a door or a boot or a trunk, tailgate, check the wires in the hinge. Anyway, I hope this gives a little understanding of what's going on with the position switches, how they work. What I'm going to do now is just take a moment to explain what's going on with the wiring, and I know a lot of people already know this, but I think for those that don't, I'll just say it so that we all know. So what I got here, I'm going to draw a picture, and this is going to be like a battery. Positive and negative on the battery, so that would go to a ground. And this one, I'm going to do like a light bulb and a switch. I'll just draw the switch like that, so it's open, and then that would go to a ground. So the idea is, with this, the light bulb's not switched on, we've got 12 volts, so if I was to use a voltmeter in here, right, and I'd have one end on the battery negative, and the other end of the voltmeter, we'd get 12 volts here, 12 volts before the bulb, and after, even 12 volts all the way to the switch. Because it's not switched on, there's no current flow, it means the whole thing, including the bulb, is basically nothing more than a jumper wire. You know, it's just extending your test leads if you check it here, because it's not doing anything. So that's the same sort of theory. Of course, I'll take some of this off here, right, so we can see it without all these squiggly lines. Right, so we've still got the bulb in there. So that would be 12 volts after the bulb if this switch was open, but if the switch was closed, this all becomes the ground side. All this bit would be the ground, and this bit would be the positive, with the switch closed. But as soon as the switch is open, the ground side would end here, and the positive would extend through to the switch. And that's what it's doing. So the only slight difference is they use a resistor instead of a bulb. So I'll just show you that. So we'd have the battery the same, positive and negative, ground. And this one now is going to be, instead of it being a bulb, we're going to have a resistor. So there's the resistor, and it's got the wire going out to the boot latch, because this is a switch. We want to know the position of the switch, so there would be a switch at the end of there. So here's the resistor, and we've got the power going into it, and on this side we would have a voltmeter. So if that switch was switched to a ground, like that, this would go to 0 the same way it would with a bulb. Now the difference is with this, it's using the module, the body control module. So if you imagine this resistor and the voltmeter is inside a body control module, right? That's all inside it, so it knows whether this is open or closed. You'll see 12 volts on there when the switch is open, and when the switch is closed, for the same reasons as the bulb, that would be 0. What I'm going to do now is show that we've got two switches, but it's the same idea. This is the BCM, and we'd have the resistors inside. We've got like they're not voltmeters, but it's like having a voltmeter inside. It knows whether it's open or closed by monitoring the voltage on that wire. So again, when it's open, when they're both open, they would both be 12 volts. And when it's closed here, the whole wire is then 0 volts. So the body control module knows when it's open. One of these could be located in a way so that when the boot latch is open, like unlocked, I don't know how to draw that as a latch, but it's kind of like, you know how it hooks around something? So that would be the latch there, and it would hook around. So it would have a micro switch inside, so one that it knows when it's in that position, and then when the boot latch is in the open position like that, it would know it's open. So then it's got two ways of knowing the position. Also in this boot latch we've got two more wires. One of them is a ground. Okay, and that's where these two wires get the ground. They would come back through this one, the ground wire, and then the positive that comes out. And these two also go to the boot actuator. Well, that would be here, if we were drawing it. It would be in here, a little actuator to open, to allow it to unlock anyway. Okay, to allow it to open. So that's what's going on with all that. So I thought I'd try and draw it a bit.